think with the MVP, I think we need to just get people to like kind of stop thinking about it too much. Like, because it's not even a matter of like, in my mind, it's not like at this point, it's not a matter of skateboard versus rocket ship or something like that, like, or car. It's just a matter of like,
Yeah.
get started with something. You'll learn a lot more by starting with something and like just doing something. The
Hmm.
fundamental dynamic is you have to start somewhere small. You can't, there's no,
Yeah.
there's no scenario where we build the whole thing at one time, basically. So you can kind of plan it out all you want, but you just don't need to do that. Like and this is not necessarily MVP versus, again, it's not a matter of like, MVP only matters what you release. Doesn't matter
Right.
what you build or how fast you're building it. Like you could build something, release it, and then continue building, obviously. So it's this decision point of MVP is more about what you release, not about what you build. You got to start building something small no matter what you do. Like you have to start somewhere. So the key dynamic is not worrying about MVP or what you're releasing. It's just like, where do you start? Like fundamentally, the question is,
Right.
what's the first thing you start to build? And that should probably be the most valuable feature you can think of. Like what's the thing that should work the most effectively? That should be front and center. That should be the primary value of the product. So the key dynamic is just, I mean, and this is, I think, especially with AI. I mean, this was even before AI. Like, you just don't need to worry that much about like figuring out what MVP is. Yeah, that'll change over time. Like,
Right.
you need to build the most important things until you get to the point where you say this package is valuable enough for me to launch, and that's call that your MVP. I mean, or call that your product. I mean, you're going to keep building no matter what you do, anyways. So it's great to have a lot of feature ideas, but you've got to prioritize them. You got to say which one's most important. Even just from a user experience perspective, like the user can't see all of them, all of the possible features all at once. So it's like,
Right.
it's kind of more of
Yeah,
a matter of, I think, like a design lesson to a certain extent. And then this,
I think
Go
even if
ahead.
you're not sure where to begin or you just have an idea, like I think a very good exercise to begin with is just like talk about it with the AI and stop fearing the AI and just like talk about it. I want to build this. What's the best feature? Where should I start? Like even just like talking and asking questions, I think it's the best thing to just like begin with anything.
we should, probably be helping people to understand, like, you can throw things out. Like if it's going in the wrong direction and it took you 3 days to do it, you lost 3 days of time. Like, that's not the end of the world. You've learned a lot all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So really it is just trying to figure out how to start. And that is getting better at figuring out like what the most important experience is that should be front and
Yeah.
center, most obvious, and then everything else sort of like branches off that in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of inspires like two thoughts for me, which is like one, I think that there's an element of like perfectionism and maybe like fear of tossing stuff out that associates with that, where it's kind of this urge to like, you want to one shot the perfect thing, which I feel like is not a realistic part of building software. But I think that especially for folks that haven't done it in a hands-on way before, like there's that sort of preciousness about it that I think is probably misplaced a little bit. And then I think to the second point, like there's kind of that old graphic of like the scooter and the skateboard and the bike and the motorcycle and the car. And like I feel like for folks that are, experienced entrepreneurs from like the business side, I think that there is sort of that urge to figure out, how do I create the fully baked thing that's not my dream thing, which I think is a little bit different actually from what you're describing of like figure out the most valuable feature and it could be part of the dream thing, but like, or maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'm curious how you would respond to that, Jared.
No, I mean, again, you gotta separate out building from releasing. Like,
Right.
what you release is going to be a set of a bunch of steps of building. Like, you're not going to do one thing. And this whole, I'm curious where this like desire for one, what's the term? Like one
Like
step,
completes kind of, yeah. Or one shotting,
one
sorry.
shot. Yeah, one shot. Like, I don't understand that desire. Like, fundamentally, like you want to write something up so detailed and then give it to the AI, come back 4 days later and have the perfect thing. Like, that's not going to happen no matter what you do. Like, that's just a stupid process. Like, first of all, you're spending too much time up front thinking through this. I mean, it's helpful to think through and like, you want to be thoughtful about it, but the AI is going to, if you write up something too complex, it's going to, there's going to be way more room for misinterpretation basically. And so you're going to come back and have something that's different from what you wanted because you can't communicate perfectly. So it's better to take it incrementally and make sure it's, like, you check in occasionally along the way. Is this going well? Or did something get miscommunicated? Because potential for miscommunication is still huge. Like, it is always huge. Like, no matter what, you're using the English language to communicate something. and there's always room for misinterpretation. So you want to check in regardless. So you might as well just give it a relatively small chunk of something to do. How'd that go? Okay, let's build on that. Let's do this. Like, make this like relatively small chunks so you go along the way. So you're not no matter what you release, it's going to take multiple of these small chunks, and you still want to kind of prioritize the most important experience first, so you can test it more as you progress, and like make sure it's really meeting the needs of the user. Like maybe that small feature is not enough to release because it's kind of used. It's like just not doing much yet, but it's the anchor point. It's the center of gravity for the application, and so you kind of like expand from there. And I think people underestimate the value of touching and feeling something in order to improve it. Like
Yeah.
you can imagine something all you want, but you go in there and you touch and feel it. You were gonna want to make changes. It's gonna feel imperfect. Like you will constantly be improving your application. Like that is how it works. And so you have new ideas. You have new observations to make. So the skateboard and car analogy is still valuable for what you release. It's just not how it's not how you need to approach the whole building process by like designing a skateboard up front. You can figure out as you're building it, like what is a package of things that is available for release. And that's what you do at each stage. It's like once you release the first time, then you don't release again until you have some sort of feature that is holistic in nature that is worth providing to people, basically. And so this whole idea of like, I mean, that is the same analogy as the skateboard to car, but I think the skateboard to like motorcycle to car makes these steps
Yeah.
more big. Like just you fundamentally just want to find some set of features that is valuable to somebody. And how much value it's adding is kind of the primary question. Is going to be worth them paying or worth them spending their time on it or whatever? But either way, you have to build it and you're going to be testing it as you build, and you want to be testing those features as you go. And then it's a question of like, and then the question becomes, when do I release it? Do I have the skateboard version of features that
Yeah.
somebody will find valuable? Not the person in 5 years who now I've built the car and it has all the features and it's enterprise, but like it's valuable to somebody somewhere basically. So I think just it's a mental shift, and probably just takes practice of building things, I guess, is my
Yeah, well, I feel like also AI is so like prolific in what it creates. So I feel like there is maybe a little bit of like being misled of like if you're using AI, like I think your suggestion, dating was great, but I often find for myself if I'm using AI to like write a product spec, the spec becomes super long and dense, and then it kind of goes more towards I think that here's a bunch of stuff that like actually is not clear, but it like can get miscommunicated, and so like how
yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
figure out what's the
literally
appropriate amount?
super long and dense is like red flag. Like
Yeah,
it's really
totally.
hard to understand what you're trying to communicate in something super long and dense, even for an AI.
Right.
Like because there's ways. The more stuff you have in something, the opportunities for misinterpretation or miscommunication compound. Like all it takes is one misinterpretation up front, and now the interpretation of something later on is more likely to be off anyways because you've just gone off the wrong direction. Like, so why not minimize that risk by doing things more incrementally? Like, I just don't understand the desire to like sit down and like write everything out when you have AI, you can just go. Like, you can, and you can stop and throw it away and start again and go backwards and forwards. And if you're incremental, you could go back a couple of steps. If you're not incremental, it's harder to like trace out what happened there. So maybe that's just the first lesson that we want to encourage people, is just to think more incrementally, more like, I don't know, it's gonna be some analogy, like if you were building, like what is an experience somebody's used to in their lives where they do something incrementally? Like writing a book or
Gosh.
writing an essay might be something in that category. I mean, and it does like, I know it's tough because I do think, I mean, planning is a big part of it. And so if you're writing a book, you often like do like chapter outlines and like you don't write the book. Although I do feel like it's often valuable to just write stuff in addition to doing the planning. Like you don't do these things. You don't, even with a book, you don't write the perfect chapter outline first, and then you write the perfect chapter second. You write a chapter outline, and you start writing. And you're like, wait a second, this chapter should come first, or that chapter should come second, or wait, this should be a completely different chapter because it's not fitting in properly. Like you go back and forth between layers of abstraction. Like you kind of go, it's helpful to plan things out, but then once you start digging into it, you realize it's not working as well as I thought it was going to work. So you go back and change the abstraction, and you go back and forth between these levels. So like that's something that like the skateboard and motorcycle and car doesn't really capture, the fact that like as you're building the motorcycle, you go back and you change the skateboard dynamics a little bit. Like you just kind of go back and forth until you have something that makes holistic sense. But touching and feeling, I mean, that's probably the biggest lesson is touching and feeling is always going to be more informative than you imagining something. You're going to imagine it wrong and you're going to miscommunicate it if you try to communicate to somebody. So,
I mean, I was going to say, I feel like my 3 takeaways from both of you are like, go incrementally and like, don't be afraid to take smaller chunks. Like Dani, your point, I think about like, use the AI, like ask, engage, ask questions, use that for that sort of small chunk iteration. And then I think, Jared, your sort of third point about like, you can just build and like, you don't need to have this concept of like perfect phase 1, perfect phase 2. Like it's going to go back and forth to get to that first build anyway. So like, that's okay. And like separate out the building process from what's the first thing that's going to go live in production. Like that's way down the road from just starting to iterate.
yeah, I mean, you can even start with like, here's my grandiose thing that I don't really have. Like, I want to build a marketplace that matches, one buyer with one seller. And like, you can just start there and sort of ask AI to help me deconstruct that into smaller chunks. Like, where would I start here in building this? Because I do think the process of deconstructing, like a lot of people do see value in a marketplace for X and Y. Like that's a common one. Like I'm trying to think of like a unique example. Like I'm a farmer and I want to match fruit buyers and fruit sellers or something like that. And so like I've got this like high level concept that would be great if it existed. And I kind of like know examples in the world that I've seen before that are similar. And I just kind of want to apply that to a different modality or a different situation. I think Claude can be really helpful in taking that high level concept and saying, where do I start? Like break this down into small, the bite-sized chunks that I can start with. Let's lay out those chunks up, just lay out 15 or 20 of them to start. Like honestly, you don't need more than like 2 or 3 to start because as soon as you get going, you'll want to add more and it'll become more obvious which ones to add in which order once they exist. So, but if you're kind of like, I would like to see this map out to somewhere holistic, the AI can definitely help you do that from a large, somewhat nebulous concept into something very specific and granular. And as you read through those plans, it'll already start triggering thoughts about like, oh, I didn't mean that, or I meant that, or, oh, that's interesting. I haven't even thought about that. How do I handle user registration? Is this a mobile app? Is it a web? Like, where are people experiencing this? And I bet you the AI would kind of would ask some of those questions because it can't deconstruct your high level concept without knowing some of those answers. So I think you could use it for either for both for brainstorming and for like deconstructing. Valuable for that. So
love that.
It's good to like I was thinking about like how we're thinking about like this discussion that we're having, the 3 of us, like Nadia as a PM, Jared as a developer, and I'm as a designer. So you can't just have Claude be all of them at once. So like if you have a design question, you have an engineering question or a product question, just like ask Claude and don't be afraid to just like, put your questions up there and build your product from very small or very big to something that is real. And when it's real, just like test it and see where it goes.
Yeah. And if you're uncertain about the answer it gives you, go ask another AI or something like that, or ask if, now you have a specific question to ask for research. Like it's a lot easier to find answers to specific questions on the internet or via friends than it is to find answers to nebulous, like how do I build this big thing is a whole lot different from who's the best hosting provider, basically. And so if Claude tells you one thing, you could go ask another AI, or you could go search around. And there's a lot of answers to these things in, various forums. But the other AIs, if they provide a different answer, then you're like, okay, wait a second, there's some uncertainty here. It's not as obvious as maybe one of the AIs presented, basically. So.
Yeah, it's a good point too to like trust the intuition of like if it is confusing, like it is probably a result of uncertainty that is unresolved. And like you shouldn't just kind of take the answer at face value and assume that you can't understand. It's more about like, okay, like how do we dig into that? And like I like the idea of using different questions, using different agents, trying different approaches to kind of get that research mindset on and to actually be able to get an answer where it makes sense to you because you've broken it down the problem and broken down the question sufficiently to get to that point.
Yeah. I think also to that vein, there's not only one good answer to a problem, like there can be many, and you just have to find that out along the way. So I guess another thing would be like not to be afraid to fail in some way. Like I think like it is a way to learn. So just like if you are building for the first time, just like keep on going. fail many times. That's good, and you learn from that, and that's how you build on top of.
I mean, I think even more importantly, you should expect to fail. Like nobody doesn't. Everybody fails. Like there's, I mean, and the
Yeah.
failure is also this concept. Like what is failure? Like you're not dying. Like you're not going broke. Like you may have gotten a bad feedback from a user. Like or people didn't like your
Right.
product.
Or you wasted a couple hours, you know?
What is even
Yeah.
failure? Like you wasted an hour. You wasted couple bucks. Like, and it'll happen. Like it's guaranteed to happen. You don't get to bring something
Mhm.
new into the world without something going wrong at some point. Basically, it basically always works that way. So you should expect it. You should expect setbacks and failures, and that's just part of the process, basically. So
I love that. I feel like that feels like a very good like wrap up point for this combo of like on the one end, you know, give up the one shot, expect failure, and like maybe embrace and even celebrate it because you're probably learning from that failure. And like that's just so natural to the process of building software, building startups. Like you've got to be okay with that.